So you've already got a chef's knife, a Santoku or a Nikiri, something that you use all the time, but it probably needs a partner. Batman's got Robin, right? So your chef's knife, usually you need something smaller. You can't do everything with your chef's knife. I don't care what they say on TV. You're not going to peel an apple with a 240 Gyuto. Maybe you can, but it's a bit overkill. If you wanted to get into some vegetable carving, smaller jobs, working in your hands like that, you're going to need a petty knife. So petty knives are usually a lot smaller than a chef's knife. That's a 240 chef's knife. I use this size for almost everything, except every now and again it's going to feel too big in your hands and you need something a little bit smaller. So petties are usually, there's a bunch of different sizes you can get, but I've kind of lumped them into 3 or 4 categories. You've got the ones that are about 75 to 100 millimeters long. I'm measuring that from the heel to the tip of the knife. This is the Haruyuki Kuma petty. When you get a knife this size, it's really good for kind of working in hand, you know, like I said, peeling an apple, any other kind of fruit. You know, if you did want to get into a little bit of vegetable carving, this pointy tip is really good for that. The next size up, the next category, is going to be around 120, 135 millimeters. This is a really great knife size if you're using a Santoku or a 210. Something in there, you're going to get a lot of variance between them. When we get into this size, you can chop a little bit on the cutting board with it. You can trim up some meat with it. You know, taking the silver skin off of a tenderloin or something like that. You get a lot of use out of a 120 or a 135. 120 is probably my favorite size of petty. I'm very, very comfortable using those. The next size up is 150 millimeters, not milliliters. This is usually referred to as a utility knife. The idea is you can do a lot with it. Same as the 120s, but the extra length gives you a little more wiggle room. You could use it as a bit of a slicer if you're a line cook and you got to carve a duck breast. You could use it for a boning knife, trimming up that silver skin again. A little bit better for veg prep. If you worked in a place and you had to make tomato salads all night, that's a perfect length for slicing tomatoes and assembling your dishes. Every now and again you get some kind of weird sizes. Tojiro, for instance, makes something that's 180 millimeters. There's a couple of other blacksmiths and knife makers who will do that. We're almost veering on baby Tsujihiki at this point. I don't know that I would necessarily call this a petty, but I'm not the one they pay to write on the boxes. And then a good honorable mention is called a bird's beak. Bird's beak, or a turning knife if you went to culinary school for doing all those pomme fondant, you know, your little 7-sided turned potatoes. This knife, if you're not doing those classical preparations, is really good for peeling vegetables in hand. My mom, for instance, doesn't use a vegetable peeler very often, prefers to do it with a knife. So this curve really kind of helps with peeling those veggies. So I think a petty knife is your perfect second knife. A lot of people, when they wander into a Knifewear, you know, they're looking for their all day, every day, all-purpose knife, right? It's usually a Gyuto or a Santoku, something they're going to do the most jobs with. A lot of them, eventually they'll come across a task in the kitchen where the knife is just a hair too big and they wish they had something smaller, and that's when we start talking about petties.